this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is a bonsai video in as much as I'm going to do something on my tree that I have never filmed before. I haven't done this for many years. I will be out of practice, I'll probably make some mistakes. But it's my tree, I don't care. Now this one hasn't been filmed much. Basically it got itself in a bit of a state due to neglect. With a pine, Scots pine, if you neglect it, it becomes leggy. All the needles end up on the end of wispy little branches, and it just doesn't look like a bonsai anymore. And for the first time in a very long time, I'm going to wire my tree. I'm going to bring it back into shape. Now all of the growth this year is quite extensive, so the work that I've done over the previous 2 years has done its job. I've got back budding and I've now got substantial green growth over the tree, so obviously the tree can now feed itself much better because it has 3 times the number of needles it used to have. Now come the autumn it will drop some of the older ones, which I will make allowances for. Now the basic concept of this tree is lightning strike. You can see the shari down through here. Now that was done by constant forest tractor traffic. It was on the side of a track collected from the wild with permission, and basically it kept getting bashed, and I thought, well, if it stays there much longer it's just going to get broken off. So as a very young tree I took this from the wild and decided that I would maintain this shape down through here, the idea being that it's had a lightning strike in its life somewhere. It hasn't really, it's all pretend. It's all what they call it, smoke and mirrors bonsai. But basically you are now, are you? Yes, you are now looking at the front of the tree. So you've basically got this down here, you've got the dark, this is very dark bark at the moment, it's raining outside so I've just brought this in wet. And then the concept of this tree is constant weather hitting it from here. Yeah, so it's got one branch on this side hanging on against the wind as the wind is, you know, the weather is pushing it in, and then all of the other parts of the tree are being swept away and the trunk is leaning into that weather. So that's the concept of the tree, and when I've finished hopefully it will look a lot more like that. I may have to speed the section up with the wiring because it's slow. I've just bought an assortment of wire. Strange, since I used to buy this and you used to buy a length, like I'll have, you know, like 10 metres or whatever. You buy it by weight now, so you haven't got a clue how much you're going to get. Anyway, I got some 3.5mm, 3, 2.5, 2 and 1.5. The 1.5 may not get used today because that would be for tiny little wispy branches. So I've got a double branch here, and I've decided that I'm going to make that into one. So that will be my first job. I need this one positioned to work out where this section goes. Yeah, I could start at the top, but I'm going to start here. I haven't done this for a very long time. As a consequence, I'm not sure what size wire to use, but I always go along the lines, if you wire a tree, if the wire isn't thick enough, it won't bend the branch. The branch will just go boing and bounce back where it started from. So you soon know if it's not sturdy enough. And then you get to choose. You can either put another wire with that one and double it up, or you can take it off and use a thicker wire. Most people just double it up if they've got it a bit on the thin side. So I'm starting with this one, which is taking the label off. So this is the 2.5mm, which should be able to do a reasonable branch. Now, next thing to do is work out what I'm going to wire, because I may not need to wire everything. So I'm just working out whether I can combine these 2 branches together inconspicuously. So a guy suggested to me that they should be 2. And I think I'm going to stick with that guy's idea. He said you've got a little branch here and then following the line of the trunk, another one here before it all starts getting pushed over there conceptually by the weather. So I will try and maintain this as 2. Right, let's see what we can do then. I don't really need thick wire for this, but let's see what we can do. As I said, I haven't done this for ages. Right, so we will start there. And we will go around here. This wire is a little bit thick really, but it will permanently place this branch where I want it, or part of it. It's not going to do all of it, but it will do part of it. We'll go around. So I've got to choose, the branch now forks, so I've now got to choose which one I go along, and I'll go along this one for now. I'm not making this wire tight to the branches, it's relatively loose. The problem is that the branches will swell up to the wire, and as a consequence the wire will bite into the branch. Before the branch is set, that's the problem with pines, is that they can put on a spurt, and as a consequence of that spurt, the individual little branches swell up quite dramatically. And right, so that's those 2 done. That leaves me with 3. That one comes from right back up there. So right, that was a bit thick, so we'll come down. So that was 2.5. Let's come down to 2. See how we get on with that. Don't need this thick. You know, the branches aren't heavy enough. As I said, what I will probably do is do 1 branch talking, and then I'll just shut the sound off, speed up the camera with a bit of music or something, because this is going to take me some considerable time, and I've only got a certain amount of time because I've got a Zoom meeting in a minute. Mind you, I can always stop and carry on later, can't I? Right, so we need 2. About there somewhere. Short, but not to worry. Oh, that's not going to work. That is not going to work, so we'll just twist that round there and write that little bit off and start another one, because I've still got 2 branches with nothing on them. Right, so where did we get to? I found this is called, the place I got this from was Bonsai for You. You know, with the typical number 4 in it. People don't seem to be able to write words anymore. But basically it's online, so you know, it works quite well when you don't want to buy a lot and you want to buy online. So it works quite well. And I had a good service, you know. I mean, it took them a while to get the order dispatched, but you know, they kept in touch, informed me what was going on and all that sort of stuff. So and basically there was a discount for the wire at the time, so it made life a little bit nicer not to have to spend quite so much. Right, we'll follow that bit round, come round underneath onto that one. Right, so that's all of the branches have now got some wire on. I've left the ends on because I don't know whether I've finished yet or not. Now this branch, because it's now been separated, everything's got to come down. And this is going to be a nuisance because basically the wire wasn't long enough, so I'll deal with that in a minute. So basically what we need to do is bring these branches down and flick them up. So bring the branch down, and that's why I didn't put the wire right to the end. I wanted to see where I was going to go with it. So we'll bring that round there. Try not to squash too many needles. And we can bring that little piece there inwards, and this little piece down here turned upwards like that. So you need to come over a little bit. So more like that. Then this piece can come up through the middle there. This piece can have a similar bit of treatment. You often find that when you wire a branch, you actually force some back budding. You can come up there. And then that one, which I still need a piece of wire for. So what we're doing here is we're joining a piece of wire onto a piece that's already on there that was too short. So we just follow the lines of what's already there. So just follow the wire along where it already is. It just looks neater if you do it like that. Just follow it on. And then eventually you come to the end of the first bit, and the second bit carries on and does the rest of the job. Tiny little branchlet there, we don't want to break that off. Come on needles, don't want quite so many trapped. That'll do, and that one I will have to cut that one off. Right, and then this one should be able to come up in there. So we've got a little branch here. Right. So I'm happy with that, apart from one thing. Something I didn't say I was going to do. These are new candles. So they're all coming off. That way this will now back bud and become denser. I'm leaving one on, yeah, so that the sap genuinely comes down that branch. So that's now pushed this branch into a separate place, yeah? Is it far enough away from the trunk? Yes. I think when that makes a little cloud there, that will be okay. Take the ends of the wire off so we don't poke our eye out. Never leave wire sticking out. You will eventually lean into the tree and something will go wrong and you'll poke your eye. Right, so that's that little one done. And then the same principle has got to happen here. These bits that are sticking right out here have got to be brought back in. So we've got to do some adjusting to get a much denser look to this area here with the separation here. So I actually want that a bit lower. That's better. So same principle here, basically. It's just a matter of bringing everything down in. So we'd be back to our thicker wire now for the first couple of branches. I don't think I've got any branches that need really, really thick wire here. Possibly this one, but then I'm not bending that one. That one's staying where it is. It's only the ends of this that may get bent a bit, and quite honestly they're okay where they are. All I need to do is trim the ends. It's this one and that one that need the work done on them. So we need enough to get along that branch. So we can go about there. This piece over the top here, and onto this one. Let's see if we can bring this one down a bit. Ouch, sharp end. Right, and then the other end of that can come around this one. Let's see what we can do with this one. Now, one of the first questions somebody's going to ask is how long does the wire stay on? Quite a while, possibly as much as 2 years. Problem with pine is it's a very springy material. And it can take a couple of years to set. As I've actually wired a pine before, it might have even been this one years ago, and I left the wire on for a year such that the wire was starting to bite in, and I took it off and all the branches went boing and they just went back where they were before. So all of the work and effort was a total waste of time, which I wasn't too pleased about. Come up through the middle there. You can also come up through the middle there. Then we'll sort these two out. That little one doesn't need much. This one needs bringing round here to make this denser. So you need, right, so I need a piece for that and a piece for that. We go back to the thinner stuff now. Getting them in the muddle here. And when they're only half a mil difference, they're actually quite difficult to tell apart. So when I put them down, I'm trying to put them down with their labels so that I don't lose track of what's what. And what good people who do a lot of this sort of thing, they have a box with a bar on it with lots of rolls, and their wires on the roll, and it comes through a hole, and they just pull pieces out like that as they need it and cut it off. I don't, as you know, do enough of this to even think about having such an elaborate thing on the go, because I just wouldn't use it. Right, so we need to come in there. There to come round the one I've already done. Right, that's better. Over there, get this little one. Like that, and then the other end comes round this one. If you end up with an odd branch that you want to wire, obviously you start your wire around a thick part near it, a branch or even the trunk, and then anchor it and bring it forward. But when you've got quite a lot of branches to do, it pays to use each piece of wire for 2 branches. So you start at the base of where those 2 branches sort of come together, and take one end round one branch and the other end round the other one, and it's self-anchoring then. You know, it automatically anchors because it's going round two branches. Right, so this little one is going to come there. This one is the awkward one because I don't want it to droop. I might even have to push where I want to put that. Perhaps I could lay it along. I don't want it too close to the trunk because I'll lose the curve on this branch. I still want to be able to see that. So in fact I'm going to bring the whole lot away from the trunk a bit, which might make it easier to deal with this one. Not feeling you might have to go that way. No, take it away from the front of the tree, then bring it back in. You see how bendy they are when they're young. That will be okay. Right, so I need to come round, get my head in the way of the camera. Yeah. This one I'm going to use to thicken up because it's got a back branch, so I'm trimming that one off anyway. So you can come off. And then here, you're coming off, you're coming off, you, and you. How are we doing now? I want to take every shoot off. If I take every shoot off, it'll weaken the branch. It needs the sap to still rise and have something to work with. So don't go too mad. This little piece here needs to just move over a fraction. That's not bad. Not happy with that. Is it worth turning that up? No. We'll leave it and see what it does. Because if it pushes out a bud that points upwards, then it can be trimmed to that bud. If it pushes a bud downwards, then it'll have to come off. Choose now. Right, so we're getting there now. Ends off, eye pokers. Right, so that's the basic principle. Could do with that just being flicked up a bit. I'll see what it does. See what it does. So what we've got now is a tighter cluster, yeah. So the individual shoots are now closer together, so they're denser. And where some of them have been trimmed, they will back bud and make this quite dense. We've maintained our gap through here, which has to be, and we have our gap here. I'm wondering whether to put a thicker piece on there. No, it'll take it too close to the trunk. So we'll have a little pad here, getting pushed in, and then we'll have our main branch on this side, quite tight to the trunk, yeah, but not tight enough that we lose our lovely curve here. This bit has to be maintained. It's an integral part of the shape. The weather's been pushing it back all this time. Right, so I'll leave the camera running for the rest of what I'm going to do, but I will, from this point, I will speed it up with some music, so it'll run very fast because I've got a lot to do. And as I talk about it, it takes an awful lot longer to do anything. So, right. Okay, so I'm not going to wire the top. All I've done is trim that just to redistribute the evenness, one of the look and two of the strength of the branches. So any branches that were excessively strong, we got visitors, I've trimmed those harder back than some that weren't as strong, so the energy will go more evenly distributed. So what we've now got here is the curve going over here, which if ever I get round to wiring this, I may emphasise it by bringing it tighter down. But at the moment this is back budding and growing well, and I don't want to take too much strength out of it. So we've got our curve coming over, and then on over here, and on over here. So that's our outline, you know, with that maintaining that curve. And what we've got now is two far more distinct pads over here. So we've got one here that extends the whole width of the tree, and some may say that's a little bit long. Well, I'll leave it for now. Maybe at a later date this needs to come back in a bit and make it tight. But if it's windswept in that direction, this lower branch would push out because it's more sheltered by the rest of the tree. So in theory that's not as daft as it sounds. And I've got a bit more gap now between, I put a big thick piece of wire on this branch to bring this away from this one. Yeah, so I've dropped that one down a bit, so it gives me a more distinct gap here. This gap here is fine. Could do with reducing it very slightly perhaps. That'll do. And then over this side we've got a distinct gap between this one and this one now. So, and I've brought that one in a lot tighter to the trunk, the idea being that the weather is constantly pushing against this tree. So now that wire will have to stay there for some considerable time, and if it bites into the branches on a pine, that's not a big deal. And the reason it's not a big deal is because it's a very gnarly type of bark, so the marks will grow in over time. I mean, I've seen trees in bonsai nurseries where the wire got embedded so deep the bark's grown over it. You can only see it in a few places. Anyway, that's the first real shaping that this one's had for some considerable time. Now that branch is annoying me. It needs to come round there a bit more perhaps. Still annoying me. It's that bit that's better. It's that bit was sticking up. It's a bit more even now. Right, so I'm going to leave it at that, and something a bit different. As I said, I'm well out of practice with this. Keep the wildlife in the tree, preferably. I don't want it in the house. Yeah, so something a bit different, and as I say, I've speeded up section on the grounds that I explained a little bit over here, and that bit's just a matter of getting on with it basically. Can't spend too much time on it. Right, so back outside. The only thing I haven't done this year, which I normally do, is the actual bare piece here. I've got some treatment, some sulphur, and it usually gets a coat of that, which turns it yellow, and then when the sun hits it, it bleaches it white. But it preserves the wood, because obviously this is dead wood, this is heartwood, this can rot. So the sulphur actually preserves the wood, and after the sun gets on it and the yellow disappears, it's a nice bleached white, and it emphasises this part of the tree, as that is quite an important part of the tree. So anyway, that's my Scott pine collected tree, and I may look for another one and start a new one in a different style, because this one, the style was sort of given to me because of the shape of the trunk, if you see what I mean. So I was limited to how much I could do with this, but so it's thickened up an awful lot over the last couple of years. I'm pleased. It was really scrappy when I first started. Got left for 4 or 5 years untouched. Needs to be repotted come the spring. Needs its media refreshed if nothing else, and I might try getting a different pot as well, because that's not a very good one. It's cheap Chinese copy it's not even. It's supposed to be oval, and one end is, well, it's got like almost a square bit on it. It's a real cheap and nasty pot. I get something a bit more akin to a haggard mountain pine, subject to the weather. So we'll see what we can do. Anyway, see you next time.